Hello, hello, and welcome back to another episode of Activate Your Voice, Be Seen, Be Heard. I'm your host, Melissa D. White, Coach Mel, broadcasting to you live out of Atlanta, Georgia. I'm so excited you guys have been with me the last few weeks as I bring you the Activate Your Voice series exclusively here on LinkedIn Live, sponsored by Activation Coaching International, where training is for information and coaching is for results. I want to definitely thank you all for continuing to support this platform. Make sure you go over and follow Activation Coaching International here on LinkedIn and join our community of speakers, coaches, and entrepreneurs to give coaching as a solution to sustainable results to your team. Again, very excited. If you have not already, check out our last issue of Activation Magazine, where we feature our coaches across the country who are certified to help you and your teams be seen and heard. So you can learn more about that inside of our page. Just follow Activation Coaching International here on LinkedIn, or also visit us at theactivationhour.com/activation coaching. So this week, we're just going to get right to it. You guys have been amazing in sending in topics. I love the love and the feedback of what you're providing. If you're watching live, just put hashtag live. If you're catching the replay, put hashtag replay. I want to know who you are so I can shout you out, so I can say hello and make sure you're getting all the tools you need to be seen and heard when you're tuning into our broadcast. Also, just tell me where you're from. You guys have been amazing at sharing, turning on your notifications, and reposting this content. I've gotten amazing feedback, and I just love the love, and I want to give it right back to you and to your teams. So again, this is our third actual installment or episode, and I'm excited. Look at this third episode on March 3rd. So 333s. I love it. I love just the continuation of this. I started out as me just bringing my message here to this platform because the mission is to activate 1,000 voices for speakers, coaches, entrepreneurs, and leaders to actually have a safe place to share your stories and to be seen and be heard, where there oftentimes are not spaces for you to tell your story. And so, what a great way to continue this series with today's topic, which is 5 ways to help your teams use their voice. Okay, this platform was created to have again a safe place for the unseen and unheard. Now, you may be saying, Melissa, who exactly are the unseen and the unheard? I put quotations here because oftentimes we assume that everyone can speak up when they want to, or that they are safe in doing so. And I've just found that oftentimes those who are maybe marginalized or not included in certain platforms and spaces, yes, even in today's time, as we are strongly focused on the endeavors of diversity, equity, and inclusion, it's highly important to still make room and create, and when I say safe spaces, meaning that they are safe to be vulnerable, transparent, and to also be solution driven spaces where there's action taking place for the issues, the thoughts, and the concerns of marginalized communities to be heard. So, this is why this topic is important. This is one of the ones that you all actually submitted, that, hey, what are ways that teams can be supported? I got this question from a few leaders, actually, one particular leader that's a part of our community who is in the multifamily housing industry from my background, and said, hey, I know that I may have a platform as an executive, as a leader, but how do I share that space so that I'm not only speaking for the C suite, but I'm also sharing the platform, if you will, or passing the podium and the microphone along vertically throughout the organization, from your site teams to middle level management, and then also passing it horizontally, passing it along to community partners, suppliers, others who are stakeholders in the work you do. And so I saw a quote, and I led with this quote actually in my announcement for today's show. It said that about 70% of consumers, 70% of consumers, this was from LinkedIn Learning, and also shout out to Chelsea Cross. It was a quote I saw from her tweet, who's an influencer here in the LinkedIn space. And she says 70% of consumers, okay, trust and do business with brands when the CEO or employees are actually seen and heard, hello, seen and heard, using or talking about the brand on their social media channels. And that really stuck out to me because traditionally this would not be the case. And I understand, taking some actions to monitor or to make sure that you're putting out the right branded message about your company, about your organization, that it is tailored. And this is true. But we don't want to miss the opportunity for organic, authentic, okay, and human communication from the people who work for you. What better way to attract your people, your customer, than to let your first customer, we forget that sometimes, our first consumer of our services and products and ideas are really the people we employ. If they don't believe in what we do and what we offer, then it would be very challenging for them to actually relay or convey the messaging, okay, to do sales, marketing, retention, if they themselves do not see themselves as a consumer, if they don't believe in themselves as a part of the brand, the mission, the company goals. And so you want to empower them to feel like your first consumer so that they use the language of the company and the consumer. You understand what I'm saying? We teach that inside of activation coaching. It's called inclusive language. And I can get deeper in that on another episode. But inclusive language is really, if you look closely, every company, every industry, and every brand has a language that is unique to your culture and your organization. So now it makes it deeper and helps it spread further when the language, meaning certain keywords, phrases, terminology that resonate, come from your people as well. Does that make sense? So I want to quickly give you these 5 ways. And if you're watching this and you're tuning in, I want to hear from you. Drop in the comments that you're here. Again, I want to thank you for tuning in live. If you're watching live, put hashtag live. If you're catching the replay, hashtag replay. I encourage you to turn on notifications, follow me, follow Activation Coaching, so you know when we're discussing topics that resonate with you, your organization, and your team. So let's get right to the meat of this thing. The first thing that can help you empower your teams, if you're a leader watching this, and let me give a disclaimer before I give number one. Some of you may be watching this saying, well, Melissa, I'm either a solopreneur, right? Or a very small startup. You may not have a big team or what have you, or contractors, coaches, speakers, things of that nature. Here's the thing. If you feel you don't have people to pass that along to, then these are good tips for you to start to adopt now for yourself personally, so that when you are at the point of hiring and outsourcing some of your tools, outsourcing some of your work and your resources, that these 5 things can help you create an echo. What do I mean by that? I actually learned a lot of this, not only working in my corporate roles, but I learned this in the nonprofit sector. One of the things they teach when you are looking for gaining donor support or storytelling, if you will, is that you have to ensure that your board of directors, your leaders, and all the way down to your volunteers or the recipients, the stakeholders of service, are using the same terminology and wording. That's where I was talking about language, to tell the story. So when you listen to me share these 5 ways to help your teams, use their voice, it's really important that you begin to think on your own, like, wow, like, is the messaging that we share such a way that it's adopted by everybody in the company? Is it just C-suite language, or does it correlate to on-site team relatability? Does that make sense? All right. So you want to make sure it correlates. That's like if the C-suite is speaking Spanish and your regional team, okay, or your divisional team is speaking French, your message is going to get stuck and it's going to get trapped in a language that no one else understands. All right. So it's really important that at every level that you speak the same terminology and language. So number one is resource groups. Okay. We talk about this a lot in DE&I in terms of affinity groups or resource groups. And this is really important. Um, Sharing resource groups, case studies. I'm sorry, actually, number one is case studies. How many of your companies are using case studies? I see this a lot on LinkedIn. I actually, every time I see it, I try to celebrate when I see employee recognition or career case studies. Let me give you a really good example. If there is an employee who started with you maybe as an intern, or they started with you in an entry level position, or they're not at like the very top level of the organization, if they have participated in peer mentorship, if they have participated in leadership programs, how are you now measuring their career trajectory? How are you packaging and positioning their story? I know for me, that was a huge thing in companies I previously worked for, where they would do peer exchanges, like literally send people across the country for facilitation, and they would measure like where was your output and your performance before you worked in this program, or before you accepted for this program, this internship, this mentorship. And then as a result, after 30 days, 60 days, 90 days, 6 months, a year later, what outcomes, like, did you get a promotion because of what you learned? Did you um Now, did your team see better results because of what you gained from that program? So success stories are really important. And also diversity of storytelling. Diversity of storytelling is very important so that your constituents, your stakeholders, your customer can see themselves in the stories of your employees. I'll give you a wonderful example who does a great job at this. Chick-fil-A. Have you seen the Chick-fil-A commercials where they have a customer sitting on the couch alongside one of their team members, and they're sharing a story or an exchange where the Chick-fil-A team member has changed their lives doing something simple, some small act of service? Well, it doesn't get more relatable than that. Any of us who've been through a Chick-fil-A drive-through or inside a Chick-fil-A restaurant can say, oh yeah, I've experienced something like that. So there's the relatable language of service. Okay. There's the relationship displayed in that success story between the consumer and the Chick-fil-A team member. All right. And oftentimes they'll even highlight in commercials who they're giving scholarships to. Chick-fil-A team members who went on to be franchise owners. That's just a simple example. So if you are a coach, a consultant, a supplier, a vendor, it's really important to start looking at some of those exceptional stars on your team, and actually write and tell the story, and tell it in video. Something like this. Do an interview with them, do a highlight on them, put their success story in a newsletter. I'm seeing more and more companies really do this in celebration of their team members, especially now coming out of Black History Month and into Women's History Month. Is a great time to do that. All right. So two number two is internal and external podcasts. This is the second way to help your teams use their voice. Now, if you know me and you've been with me for a while, I'm always going to talk about using and activating your voice. I'm always probably going to talk about video and podcasting. I'm always going to talk about inclusion. And so, podcasting, when I first started, was not, it was popular, but not like it is now. And there's a reason for that. A lot of dynamics happened between the end, like in 2019 going into 2020. And I know we talk about the pandemic, the lingering effects of the pandemic, but one of those things was that we had to be really creative in how we maintain and convey communication. So my background, in case you don't know it, I wasn't always a coach and consultant. I worked in corporate training. And one of the frustrations was that information would be lost in translation, and there was no real way, like we had on learning management platforms where you could take the online classes and watch the videos, the cartoon animated videos. Y'all know what I'm talking about, right? You know what I'm talking about. And I love that. I personally started podcasting um in 2015, 2016, and then expanded that. And I never ever, it didn't click at the time that podcasting one would be as big as it is. It's a multi-billion-dollar industry. That podcasts would they have become much easier to set up and maintain inside of your company. I mean, people are doing podcasts directly from their phone. You don't need a fancy studio, microphones, monitors, and all of that. There's a way to do it. And actually, I'm gonna share my screen in a bit, and I'll share some of my favorite tips and tools, and I'll actually put those inside of our blog on the Activation Hour and in the Activation Coaching group. But podcast, because people love to learn on the go. Everyone won't have the time to do what you're doing right now and watching videos on LinkedIn or on YouTube. I call it, it's learning on demand, learning at mass and learning on demand. And that's why podcast has increased its appeal. There's also a communal aspect to podcasting. Like, how many times do we hear something we love and we just got to tell another person about it? We build community around the messaging. So you're building community in your company when you have a repository of information, and a podcast can be that. There's actually a company, there's several ways, and this is not a sponsored suggestion. These are literally just my personal suggestions to you as tools that I've seen and recommended to clients for establishing their own internal. You can do a closed circuit internal podcast with short snippets, record audio. Audio is good for learning on demand on the go. If your team is out in the field, they don't have time to look at their phones and watch a video, but they still want to learn. They still want to get a message from you. They still want to be a part and consume and partake of your messaging. So one of them is called Storyboard for private podcasts. Okay, they have everything from free to enterprise level. I'm gonna share with you a really quickly what it looks like. Um, Storyboard private podcast. This is actually one that I've tried before, and I'm playing around with it because I'm used to doing like public RSS feeds through all of the podcasting platforms. But I had clients who were specifically interested in just internal podcasts. If you got, how many of you are using internal podcasts, just audio podcasts? If you're using that, then please, by all means, comment below. Tell me what platforms you're using and how that's working out for you. But Storyboard for audio teams, you can literally distribute these on demand audio messages. There's another terminology you may hear people using called social audio. Social audio. And it became wildly popular, of course, with the emergence of Clubhouse. Wisdom is one of my favorites if you haven't used the Wisdom app. But again, they're all public still. You can turn on private settings, but this one's really cool where you can see right here, like you just create whatever your cover art is, mobile players. It has comments and listener voicemails. I love that feature. Okay. I love this feature where you can do listener voicemails and your team. Imagine if you're a leader and you're at your corporate office and your team wants to reply back to something they learned. Or if you're like me, where I want to get immediate feedback if people have questions on what I'm teaching in real time. So you can get real time listener comments and voicemails, and they can reply back to you. You can brand this with your company name as well, so it has that polished, white labeled look and feel for you. Isn't this really amazing? I love it. There's other companies that featured it. You can launch your internal podcast on all your devices. You can interview leadership, outstanding employees, much more, and drive your culture using their app. Again, this is not a sponsored suggestion to you. This is totally on my own research to serve my clients and help them set up podcasting and social audio as a way to help their teams use their voice. I think that's pretty amazing. All right. So on to number 3. Is this helpful? If this is helpful, just say that's good. Just drop that's good in the comments so I know that you're still with me. Number 3, social media takeover. I just love, love, love when social media is not robotic. Like it's the same canned messages or stock images, things of that nature. And you actually get the humanized effect of a team member writing the captions, doing reels, posting videos. I've seen some really great engagement with that. My former employer, the Cool Source, I just love what they're doing over there with team member led. They're teaching tips and writing blog posts and doing videos that they're sharing. It's amazing, and it adds personality. You don't want your company, it's like if you don't give that place for your employees to be seen in your social media channels, it's like meeting a person with no personality. They are the heartbeat, the hands, the head, they're all of that stuff. And so how cool would that be if like your I don't know, your social media director comes from behind the scenes and reveals themselves. And they're like, it's kind of like the Masked Singer. You ever watch this show? And you say, can you guess who's taking over our social media this week? And this week it's going to be like our social media managers coming from behind the scenes to actually show their face and talk about the day in the life of a social media manager or something. Or you can have an actual store manager, right? Who says, "Hey, I'm taking over today and you're going to follow me around a day in the life of the store." Like, I think that's really cool. And that's a really good thing to do in reels on TikTok, interview segments will be amazing to help build and boost the morale, the culture. Like, imagine how much your team would love seeing one of their peers being featured, or your customers would love seeing one of your team members be represented. I think that's amazing. So I want to know if you guys use these tips. If you're going to use these, let me know. I want to know how that's going for you. Now, before I jump to number 4 and number 5, I want to just make sure again we're shouting out our sponsors for this segment. Again, this segment is sponsored by Activation Coaching International, and we've just launched our new membership, our accountability group, which is the Activation Accountability Group with bi-weekly live meetups, networking, and support to help you be seen and heard. You can learn more here on Facebook. Be seen, be heard, be accountable. Just go to the group, join, and learn more on our website at theactivationhour.com. And then again, also Activation Coaching International, where we are now certifying coaches. Go from managing to coaching with the right tools and information to help you equip your teams to be seen, heard, and accountable. Activation Coaching, we're actually launching another cohort of training. You can actually train your managers to become certified coaches. New cohort starting on March 28th. March 28th is our next cohort. So again, follow us here on LinkedIn, Activation Coaching International, to learn more about our next coaching certification training. All right. So I left off at number 4 on the 5 ways to help your teams use their voice. All right. Number 4 is actually marketing and promo recognition. I've seen brands actually put their team members and billboards, signage, like not hired models, not influencer marketing, real people, real stories, real recognition. Imagine what that does to boost the image of the company, to humanize you, to show that you're actually in tune or in touch with your people. I think one of the hardest things is when organizations are out of touch. If leadership in the C suite is out of touch with the stories and the messaging on the site level, it's really important that we make space. And when we strategize with your PR team, your marketing team, to put some of those stories out on the news wire. If there's notable accomplishments don't always come from the C suite. Notable accomplishments could be awards within your company. They could be industry news of team members that have joined committees, joined boards, that are part of national teams. It's really important that you show your support in helping diversify the voice and the messaging through promotional endeavors. One of the things I've seen, because I come from a background in multifamily property management in the apartment industry, is if you have team members that live on site, to actually tell their resident stories, show that they work for you and they live at your communities. What's their experience living with you? I've seen many companies do that. And so I think that's really sticky content to show team members as the face of your company. All right. And that happens a lot where you might do a contest. That's a really popular one, is to do a contest, and it could be some type of award for the best sales or the best performing team, and they're recognized in a national or regional campaign. And the last one, you ready for number five? You ready? You ready? You ready? You ready? Just say I'm ready, Melissa. Number five, sponsored speaking engagements. Now, I can't talk about activating voices and not touch on speaking opportunities. I'm so thankful and fortunate that I had bosses and leaders in my past who, like, even when I thought, like, hey, I really want to speak at conferences, or I would go to state, regional, national conferences, and I'm like, man, like I want the minority voice to be heard. And my leaders would say, hey, you need to be up there. Even, when I was scared or timid or intimidated, they're like, hey, you need to apply for that. You need to submit a proposal. And I didn't even know what that looked like, what that entailed. And they were very supportive. And I know sometimes, in the past, or there may still be some leaders that feel this way. And if you're one of those leaders, it's okay. I want to just acknowledge that it is important that you establish the ground rules of what that looks like, that it doesn't conflict with the work, of the company or the work of the employee, that there's not a conflict of interest or of going to conferences or things that are not representative of the values or the mission of the company. But I do think one of the greatest ways to get the company message out is to champion speaking opportunities. And I see that a lot now, where companies are willing to sponsor workshops or segments, luncheons, and events for employees, team members who are actually becoming facilitators, um, session speakers, or keynote speakers. And that is one of the fastest ways to not only help your team member be seen and be heard, but to also get a lot of eyes and ears on your company through the messaging of the employee. That makes sense. I've been real That was one of the first ways, like, I became a speaker because my companies that I've worked for in the past, employers in the past, gave their go ahead or their support to do sponsored segments, send me to National Apartment Association NAAEI, apartmentalize, and then even it shifted to other industries and platforms to go out and represent causes and messages that matter. I think it's really important to do that. And so those are definitely the 5 ways again that we can support employees to be seen and heard outside of looking for it's not complicated. We overcomplicate it sometimes on how to make people feel special and feel important. And I think the number one way to do that is to listen, to pass the mic, to yield the floor, and and show, display your talent outside of the company. Like, you can know you have a really amazing person internally. It's like being in a relationship and not telling anybody that this is your person. Right? It's like, I don't know yet. I don't want to like reveal you to the world. And that's what we say when we don't give our teams a chance to be seen, known, and heard outside of the company to the rest of the world. So if this was good, let me know. Again, if you want to know some of the tools that I shared with you. So for internal podcasting, again, that was Storyboard. I'll drop the link here in the comments if you want to check them out. Also, if you want more information, I'm gonna drop that down here. Storyboard. So it's trystoryboard.com for internal podcasts. If you want to do a deeper dive with me on how to use video, how to thank you so much, thank you for jumping in. I'm glad this was helpful and important to you. Leave me a comment if you are going to use these tools. If you have questions about these tools, you can email me at Melissa at the Activation Hour. I'll pop my email up here on the screen. I want to hear from you. If you would like to be a featured guest on a segment and to share how you are activating voices and helping others be seen and heard, you can absolutely jump in a segment and just email me at Melissa at the activationhour.com. That's Melissa at the activationhour.com. And I'll drop that in the comments as well. Last thing that I'll share with you guys today, don't forget to jump over to Activation Coaching and check out our page here on LinkedIn. We're going to do a special segment. I do this like maybe a couple of times a month and do a free webinar with the 3 ways to use video to be seen and heard and build your brand. So if you are looking to build your personal brand as a speaker, coach, entrepreneur, or your company brand as a startup all the way to corporate teams, turn that camera on. Turn this camera on and engage. I just love seeing some of my favorite people and influencers over here on LinkedIn coming from behind the desk and in front of the camera. And if you're not quite sure how to do that, I literally walk you through my journey of, going from like accidentally building a brand to being intentional of building a brand for activating voices and using that to build your career or transition your career. All right. So if you want to learn more about that, there is a link I'm going to share with you. I'm going to share my screen here for a second. So you can learn more about this webinar. Again, I host it a couple of times a month. Tomorrow, on March the 4th at 4 p.m. Eastern. I'm here in Atlanta, Georgia. You can join live, literally live, where you can talk to me, ask your questions. You can be seen and heard and really get some tools that you need to build your brand. All right. So there you are. If you can create videos and not be afraid, that's people's number one fear, really, is turning on the camera. I want to help you alleviate that fear and give you these 3 ways. So you can go here and register free training. There's a little micro, like 5-minute segment I do on here. Check it out today. Register for free 99. You can speak with me live 4 p.m. tomorrow in a private Zoom segment. All right, 4 p.m. tomorrow. I'm going to share that and pop that link up for you here so you can join me. If you have any questions, email me, Melissa at the activationhour.com. Join me here every Thursday, 2 p.m. Eastern on LinkedIn Live, and it's syndicated also to our YouTube channel for the Activation Hour, Melissa D. White. Family, you've been amazing. Put this to work. There's no knowledge like applied knowledge, because wasted knowledge won't get you anywhere. I'll see you next week. Oh, no, I'll see you tomorrow, because I want you to join me on the 3 ways to use video. And the link here will be in the comments. I'll see you next time, guys. Bye.